Yeah, so we went over types of probability sampling, right? So now let's go over some types of non-probability sampling. So non-probability sampling means that the population of interest, all the members of that population of interest did not have an equal opportunity of being chosen for your sample, meaning that you don't have a representative sample of the population of interest. So why does this matter? Well, in non-probability samples, every person in the population of interest did not have an equal chance of being chosen. So keep that in mind, that probability sampling, every person in the population of interest had an equal chance of being chosen. Non-probability, not everyone had an equal chance of being chosen. But another difference is that for non-probability sample, you are restricted in whether you can generalize to your population of interest. Meaning that the findings with that study you conducted, with that sample you recruited, those findings may not apply to your population of interest. They might still be interesting. You just might not be able, or you might be limited in whether you can generalize your findings to that population of interest. So keep that in mind, right? Using this sampling approach can be effective, but does place some restrictions on what you can do. So let's go over the first type of non-probability sampling, convenience sampling. Convenience sampling would simply be, hey, you and you, be in my study. Huh? Okay, sure. It would be just you recruiting who's easy to recruit for your study. So for example, just to give you an idea of that, I'm interested in the study habits of all university students. Let's say I only recruited my own students, meaning students taking my classes in 321. Well, that's not really a probability sample. It's not I didn't randomly choose from my population of interest, which they are all students, not just my class, not just psychology. It's a convenience sample. It's what's easiest to recruit, right? It's what's convenient for me. Now with purposive sampling, this is when you're interested in a specific type of individual. So for example, let's say you were interested in smokers, people who smoke, and you went to a smoke shop and you recruited people that you ran into. Or even if you posted a flyer and had them call you. Keep in mind that when you're posting a flyer, only specific type of people will call you. They're motivated, they're kind of interested, maybe they see their smoking as a problem, so they're calling you to see if you're offering any solutions. So those people that call you, first of all, that's not a random process, and they're different in some way from other smokers, right? So the smokers that you end up recruiting, the participants in your sample, they may not be representative of the entire population of interest, right? Now, if you wanted a random sample, a probability sample instead of a non-probability sample with the same type of population of interest, what you would do, it's going to be tedious, but what you would do is you would call each person in the city or the United States randomly, and yes, I mean all individuals, and you would ask, are you a smoker? And you would keep doing that until you were able to recruit enough people to be in your study. Now that would take a long time. If you did it that way, that would be a probability sample, and you would have to call people randomly, keep that in mind. But if you are approaching people, if you're not doing it in a random way, then it's a non-probability approach. It's purposive sampling. So remember how we had stratified random sampling? Here we have something similar, right? Let's say we're interested in ethnicity, and we're trying to recruit a certain number of participants from each ethnic background. Well, in that case, that actually would be quota sampling. First of all, it's non-random, meaning you're just recruiting participants to identify as Black/African American, Latino, Latinx, and so on, right? You're recruiting them until you get to a certain number that you've set. That's why it's called quota. You say, I want 80 80 of each ethnic background that I have on my list, and you recruit them in a non-random way, this would be quota sampling. Snowball sampling, pretty straightforward. You are recruiting people by asking the people you do find, hey, do you know any other people that I can recruit? So for example, let's say I was interested in recruiting people who just love Disney. You might have a friend, I have like 2 of them, who just love Disney. They have Disney passes. They go several times a month, right? So you have these people who are these Disney lovers, Disney fanatics, right? And you're going to use snowball sampling because you don't know how else to start. So you go to your friend who loves Disney and you ask them, hey, do you know anybody else who loves Disney? Oh yeah, I know people who love Disney. I'll hook you up. And then you just keep asking the people you meet, do you know anybody else? I'll introduce you to other people. So that's generally how it works, but just to give you a more serious example, let's say you were interested in recruiting undocumented students. I think personally, I think this is a very important area to study that we need research on, but just think about recruiting individuals who are undocumented and asking them to talk about that experience. They're not going to respond from a flyer, right? Why would they put themselves at risk by sharing this with somebody they don't know, potentially putting their family at risk, right? You might instead use a snowball sample, recruiting an individual who you know maybe through classes you took back before you were a researcher, or through a nonprofit, and you ask them, hey, can we talk about your experience as an undocumented student? Then maybe you ask them, do you know anybody else who would be willing to talk about this experience? So you would use this method when it's difficult to recruit individuals from those backgrounds, or when you don't know where to find them. So in non-probability approaches, keep in mind that you are limited in terms of who you can generalize your findings to. You're generally limited to the participants you have. How much you can say about the population of interest depends on how you conducted the study, but you are limited because your sample wasn't random and may not represent the population of interest.